Hello guys. One of the first videos I uploaded to the channel back in January 2016 was dedicated to a series of photographs that no one was ever able to explain. So today I will take another leap back in time, dedicating another video to this topic. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and when it comes to mysteries, this saying becomes even more powerful. So here are 7 disturbing photographs that no one has been able to explain. At number 7, we find what is said to be one of the first photographs where a ghost was able to be captured. The shot dates back to 1959 when a woman named Mabel Cineri was at the cemetery to visit her mother's grave. Before leaving, she took a photograph of her husband, who at that moment was waiting for her, sitting in their car. Once the photo was developed, behind the man, it was possible to glimpse a disturbing figure, although its face cannot be clearly distinguished. Mabel swore that the features of that presence were very similar to those of her mother. The photograph was carefully examined and considered completely authentic. At number 6, we find a very famous photograph, which you have probably already seen in some other video. However, the case is so mysterious that it could not be left aside. It was taken in 1919 and depicts a squadron from the First World War. At first glance, it seems there is nothing strange. But if we focus our attention behind the shoulders of one of the aviators in the top row, the fourth from the left, we can glimpse a face. It is said that the strange presence would be the spirit of Freddie Jackson, a mechanic who 2 days before the photo was taken had lost his life on the landing strip, hit by the propeller of one of the planes. The image was shown to the members of the squadron, and everyone recognized in that figure the features of Freddie. For a while, it was thought that the photograph could have been taken before the mechanic's death, a simple confusion of dates. But upon further investigation, it was concluded that this was not true. The shot was taken 2 days after Freddie's death. Even today, this image represents a great mystery. The photograph, ranked number 5, is one of those that has sparked a huge debate. The shot dates back to around 1864 during the American Civil War. In it, we see a series of soldiers, and at their feet what unequivocally appears to be a pterodactyl. The image was reportedly found in 1998 in an old book and published by journalist Derek Barnes. Faced with the clear possibility that it could be a fake, the photo was analyzed by some experts who immediately noticed a key fact to place it on an exact timeline. The uniforms of the soldiers would be typical of the men of the Union Army volunteers around the years 1861-1862, and also another expert, a certain Nance Darbrough, a paleontology teacher, had asserted that no one at that time could have known an opterodactyl, since the first fossils were found in North America after 1871. If the photo was really taken at that time, is it possible that at their feet was an unknown species of bird? Or how did an opterodactyl end up there? If it turns out to be a fake, it must be said that it was really well organized. To this day, this shot represents a mystery, but for many experts. Let's now move on to a more recent photograph taken in 1997 by a woman named Denise Russell. One day, Denise, while visiting her grandmother in a nursing home, took a picture of her. Once developed, at first, no one noticed an anomaly that was clearly visible in the image. It was only several years later that Denise, looking back at the family photos, realized something truly disturbing. In the image taken at the nursing home, in fact, behind the elderly woman, the figure of a man was visible who was immediately identified as Denise's grandfather. At the time of the photograph, however, the grandfather had already been deceased for over 13 years. In this case, too, the photo was considered authentic. And we've reached the podium of this ranking, where we find a photograph with a truly mysterious story behind it. What we see lying on the hospital bed is Stephen Michalak, admitted for strange burns on his abdomen. It's the shape of these burns that represent the proof of what Stephen reported at the time of his admission. As a big geology enthusiast, the man would have gone to Falcon Lake to study the minerals in the area. During one of his excursions around noon, he began to hear a strange noise coming from the sky above him. Looking up, he noticed two red lights that were getting closer. They were two huge flying objects that were landing a few meters from him. Out of curiosity, Stephen approached one of them and noticed that it had some kind of grid on the side. Suddenly, a jet of glowing gas burst out of it, hitting him full on. Panicked, he threw himself to the ground, and when he got up, the two flying objects had already taken off again and were moving away at high speed. At first, no one wanted to believe his testimony, but it seems the proof was etched on his skin. Those strange burns seemed to really prove him right. In second place on the list, we find a photograph that has been talked about a lot, especially in recent years. It's a shot dating back to the late 80s, made public by a group of friends after a trip to the Grand Canyon. That day, one of the men in the group decided to take a photo of his friend who was right on the edge of a cliff. Once developed, however, a very tall man appears among the trees with a cloak and a hood on his head. The members of the group swore that at the time of the photo that man was not present, that it was in such an isolated area that it would have been really strange if someone could be there. There were no cars nearby, so where would that strange man have come from? Sure, the photograph is so clear that thinking of a spirit or ghost is definitely difficult. But even if it wasn't a paranormal phenomenon, where did that individual come from? Why was he spying on them, hidden among the branches of a tree? Why was he dressed that way? And above all, how had he managed to go unnoticed? All questions to which no one has ever been able to provide an answer. And at the top of the list, we find a truly chilling photograph. The protagonists of the story are two girls, Kaylee Atkinson and Victoria Greaves. About 6 years ago, the two friends, after a night of celebrations, decided to go to a pub for one last drink. It was already very late and the pub was empty and about to close. Before leaving, they took a selfie. Once home, however, Victoria noticed a chilling figure in the shot, which many have wanted to identify as an elderly woman in Victorian clothes. The most incredulous accused the two girls of having modified the photo with Photoshop, but they swore repeatedly that they would have had no reason to do so. Being a digital photograph, it would have been very easy to modify it. There's no doubt about that. But Kaylee and Victoria always claimed to be in good faith. Perhaps the most disturbing fact about the story is that Newcastle, the place where the selfie was taken, is an area rich in stories related to the paranormal. From what is said, numerous ghosts have been spotted in Newcastle, and perhaps this is one of them. Personally, I find the stories related to these photographs quite fascinating. No one can have mathematical certainty that they are authentic, but there's no doubt that most of them have posed a conundrum for most experts, even the most skeptical ones. But what do you think of these images? Do you believe they are just a montage, or could they be real? Let me know your opinion in a comment.